does it mean to live out loud when the internet feels entitled to your body, your relationship, and your mental health? How do you tell your story honestly without letting the loudest or cruelest voices take control of it? And what does it look like to set boundaries while still choosing visibility? That's what we're talking about today on Out Loud and Unapologetic. Squirmy and Grubs take on stigma and storytelling. This is Disability Deep Dive.
Welcome to Disability Deep Dive. I'm Keith.
And I'm Jodi.
Today's conversation is about storytelling, mental health, and what it really takes to show up online as your full self while also protecting your well-being.
Our guests are Shane and Hannah, the creators behind Squirmy and Grubs. Through their videos, they challenge assumptions about disability, relationships, and intimacy, while also being honest about the realities behind the camera.
In this episode, we talk about navigating mental health challenges, responding to harmful commentary, setting boundaries as partners and creators, and deciding what to share and what to hold close.
Let's get into it with Shane and Hannah.
Hi, Shane and Hannah. Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to Disability Deep Dive. To start, can you introduce yourself for listeners who may be meeting you for the first time?
Yes, thank you so much for having us. I am Shane.
I'm Hannah.
And we are YouTubers and writers and disability advocates. And we're also married. Just celebrated our 5-year wedding anniversary.
Nice.
Oh, congrats.
And so for the last 8 or so years, Hannah and I have been documenting our relationship journey and the ways that my physical disability, colors that situation, and trying to improve the way that society understands disability. So, again, really happy to be here.
We're so glad to have you. You recently shared a pretty honest video about Shane's mental health challenges that you've had this summer. What led you to, talk about that experience publicly, and what did that time period look like for each of you?
That's a great question. What led us to sharing that publicly? A lot of conversations. Hannah and I, over the years, have become very careful about what we share with the world, both for mental health reasons, wanting to protect our privacy and our state of mind, and then also like safety and, business reasons. Just wanted to, never be inappropriate or anything like that. And so I felt like, my journey with my mental health has been such a big part of my life, but I didn't want to share too early before I fully understood myself and what I was going through. I didn't want to speak from a place of ignorance or a lack of understanding. And, if people the wrong ideas while I was still figuring my own brain out. So after, starting therapy and doing a lot of self-reflection and conversations with Hannah, once I felt like I was making significant progress towards healing some of my mental health problems, or at least beginning on that path, it felt appropriate to finally share it because, ultimately we hope that people who might be going through similar things or who know people going through similar things can find our content about it helpful and, make people feel less alone, because that is one of the big kind of staples of depression and anxiety, is feeling like you're very alone in that battle, but it doesn't need to be that way.
Yeah, I think we always want to share both the good things and the bad things in our life, but for bad things, we found that it's better to share once we're at least partially through it. I feel like for a couple of things now we've sometimes filmed during it, but just waited to release it till we're in a place where we can read comments that we might not like about it, stuff like that. I think we had been.
Don't read the comments. You know that.
I know,
You're supposed to-
right? Yeah, I don't read the comments, but like if Shane had been posting all along and people were saying you're faking it or whatever, like that stuff can be hard to see when you're really in the moment.
Absolutely.
So I think just kind of delaying it a little bit has been helpful.
So part of the process was getting sober from alcohol, and that in and of itself is a huge undertaking, and I could not have done it if, like Anna said, I was also reading comments from people that might not be helpful.
Yeah.
In the moment. So, that's why we ultimately shared it.
Yeah.
I think it's very powerful, and I am so thankful that you guys did that, because I think it reaches many people. Mental health is something we don't talk about a lot, and I think everyone can understand it. They either have issues themselves with dealing with mental health, or they know someone that is, and I think it's really important to kind of just put that out there, and I applaud you for that.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, I agree. And for all the haters and trolls out there with their nasty comments, there's the thing to always remember is that there's 10 times more people who are quiet but really getting something out of it, and hopefully improving their lives by hearing your story. So sometimes it's hard to remember that with the vocal haters, but
thank you for saying that. When we do public speaking engagements, we often get to meet many of the people that attend those events, and that's one of our favorite things ever, because we remember every time how much love and support there is out there,
and that there are real people watching our videos.
Yeah.
It makes it very human and not just these numbers and nasty comments that we see. So it's always a fun time.
That's excellent. Well, when life gets heavy behind the scenes, as it often does, how do you set care and boundaries for yourselves and each other, both as partners and as creators?
I mean, I think it's evolved over the years for sure. We've been doing this for, like Shane said, 8 years now. So I think we've adjusted how much we share and when we're filming, when things are just for us. Like, I think that it's just taken a while to figure out the right balance.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, it's funny. We talk about this a lot. In the beginning, we were ripping our camera out every minute of the day to film every tiny thing that we were doing. And that was great. Like, in a way, now we're trying to do that more the way that we used to. And
it was so easy.
Over the years, we kind of, because of reaction, many reasons, we kind of pulled back, and we were more guarded about our privacy and our, just living our life in the moment and not always filming it. And I think now we're in a process of like striking a balance between those two, literally like setting up those boundaries that you speak about, trying to figure out what to film, when to film, and so we're figuring it out. It's ever evolving. In our personal life, how do we set boundaries for like caregiving and stuff? We really don't.
I feel like I really can't think of any like problems or examples that we have.
I think we really love our nighttime routine of kind of at 7, 8, 9 p.m. Watching TV together, or a movie, or playing video games together, or doing separate hobbies, but like in the same room. Just kind of having that quiet alone time at the end of the day.
Yeah, we certainly protect that because it's very important to us.
Yeah, when we get like event invites at night, we're like, oh, dude, are we giving up our Netflix time?
Right.
And then like caregiving, that really just goes hand in hand for us in our relationship. Like we don't separate the two. Like this morning when Hannah was helping me get ready for the day, that was technically caregiving, but we were also chatting about our dreams that we had. We had weird dreams, and chatting about what we were gonna make for dinner tonight, just like relationship stuff.
Yeah.
And that was happening simultaneously without any kind of boundary that we set. So, yeah.
Well, I've been a longtime viewer of your channel, and one thing that I absolutely love about your channel is that you guys address very directly, and we had touched on this a moment ago. You address very directly ableist and cruel comments. You guys don't take any slack and any crap from that. So, what goes into that decision for you guys to actually call those out publicly, and the impact of those interactions, both on your mental health and your audience's mental health?
Yeah.
Deep question.
I thought.
I mean, I feel like the reason we initially began publicly talking about it is because it's in all of our comment sections, probably. I stopped reading our YouTube comments years ago, and I tend to only read like Instagram comments right after I post. And if something goes viral, I will not read the comments because that's when they get bad. So I feel like we initially talked about them because it was like, would we just like all pretend at the same time that this isn't happening? You know, people, our supporters would be fighting with them in the comments. And like, it was just kind of a public thing. And then I think the only time that we take down comments is when they are aimed at other people, like our people, the viewers in the comment section, like stuff like that. I feel like that's when we're like, if it's not specifically about us and you're just saying things about like disabled people in general, try to remove that. And obviously there's a lot, and that would be a full-time job, but
Yes.
that's kind of our boundary is like, are you making this like a broad statement, or are you saying something about us?
Yeah. And then when we choose to respond, that's usually just like an accumulation of anger. We can take so much, and then finally like one puts us over the edge and we get really fired up and just spout off a sarcastic or snide reply.
Yeah.
And that always feels really good. It's wanting to like put it in your place. Because that's the other thing was like so many of the awful comments we get can be so easily debunked or like countered with either logic or just human empathy. And you know, if they don't have either of those, then we win. So yeah, it's usually pretty easy to respond in a way that feels like we're putting them in their place.
Yeah, I'm usually watching and like, cheering you on because I monitor ours for the channel and stuff, and you know, it's hard to not take it personal, and it's that they're not necessarily we hear the term keyboard warriors. They would never say some of these things to someone's face. They just feel very empowered. So it's.
Yeah,
It can take a toll, and I'm glad you guys, stick up for that and kind of empower other people to not take that kind of treatment either.
It's funny you say about people hiding behind the keyboard on anonymity. Anonymity. Yeah, it's early. You should don't edit that out. Make sure you leave that in there.
Okay.
Absolutely, you got it.
When we go to species engagements and stuff, or when we're out in public, people all the time come up and say that they recognize us from our channel and our videos, and we've never once had someone come up and say that they thought that they know us and that they don't support us. And like by math, we've encountered them over the years. And I think it's funny that no one's ever felt the bravery to say, I don't support you.
Yeah, I think you're faking it to our faces.
Yeah.
Right. No.
I think you have the key word there, the bravery is that's the key. They don't have that bravery.
Exactly. They're cowards, really, yeah. Well, your videos often challenge assumptions about interabled relationships. How do you decide what myths or stereotypes to take on in your content? And has that approach changed since you started the channel?
I think when we started our channel, it was more just us showing fun moments from our life. And we weren't fully aware of the stereotypes and myths around disabled relationships. I think the only, like, we had people come up to us and assume that I was Shane's sister. We had a woman cry when she found out that we were a couple because she thought it was so amazing. Like, those were the kinds of things that were happening in person to us when we were out in the world. But it wasn't until we started sharing videos and then we would get comments that we realized like how hateful people could be, and that some people just like straight up didn't believe that we could be a couple.
Yeah.
So I think it definitely changed from there, where we, had a huge realization of like how badly people thought about relationships like ours.
And I think that the center of all of it is usually like our personal experiences. So the most effective way that we can make people, strangers, care about an issue is if it directly affects us or we're directly experiencing it. Because people tune into our channel because they, want to see Shane and Halo's lives. I'm speaking in the third person. That's never good. What's that? Our dog's barking.
The dog agrees.
That's all right.
You can edit this out. What was it, Sam? I lost my train of thought.
What were we talking about?
You were speaking in the third person.
Oh, they come to our channel to see Shane and the lives. Yes, there we go.
Right. And so they don't come to have us like yell at them about disability issues. They come for the fun and the humor and the entertainment. And so we don't want our advocacy content to feel preachy or like we're again yelling at people. And that means that, the best advocacy that we can do is simply like go about our lives. And when we experience ableism or inaccessibility or structural, disability issues, we can show the world how they're affecting us and explain how they might be affecting others. And it just feels very natural and organic and can even be entertaining at the same time.
Yeah, it's best if it's a funny story.
Yeah.
And there are some exceptions to that, like things that are very important but don't affect us just because we have a level of privilege to not have it affect us. So like we make videos about marriage inequality and disabled people not being able to be married, and used our love story as like a this isn't, you guys know that we're married and like that's a great thing, and look at what's happening to other people, and so I think that there's ways to bring in other issues even if it's not like this happened to us. But I think in general, stories that can make people laugh while we're also telling them something horrible is always the best.
It's a nice silver lining to be a YouTuber, is that whenever anything awful happens, we get to realize in the moment, oh, this will make a good video though.
The built-in silver lining.
Yeah.
Nice.
So, sharing your personal stories with the world is very powerful, but there's a vulnerability to it. When you decide, what you're sharing and what you're keeping private, how do you protect your safety and dignity when you open up about these subjects, not only online, but, out in the real world, when you're at these events and stuff and people are seeing you face to face?
Well, again, I think Hannah over the years has adapted to not reading the comments as often. I still read them every day, and I try to give Hannah like a high level overview of them. Was like, people loved your post. That's just what I say every day. And I handle like taking down the horrible comments when they need to be taken down, things like that. Because I've developed a very strong sense of apathy over the years for people with doing that, and I can handle it without getting too upset about it. When we're in person, though, again, like, we don't really feel like we need to protect our dignity or our, safety or anything like that. We've always had great experiences meeting people that support our channel. And
Yeah.
often, like, we wish we had more time to give them.
Yeah.
Like, they come up and share their story. It would be so great if we had more time to get to know everyone. But, there's only so much time in the day. So
Yeah.
we love doing like live streams, which we haven't done in a while. That's on our resolutions for this year. But live stream events online allow us to connect with our online followers a little bit differently than just uploading a video. Yeah.
For sure. Wow. Well, so what's coming up next for you? Whether it's your channel, advocacy, or other projects?
What's coming up next for us?
What's coming up next?
I have a book to write.
Oh,
Yes.
nice.
Oh,
Yeah. I am writing my first fiction novel,
cool.
which I've only ever written nonfiction. So I'm really excited about the project. And I've been saying that for over 5 years. But now that our latest nonfiction book, Interabled, is out there in the world, I can finally devote all of my mental energy to working on my novels. So
Yeah.
I have that actually on my list of goals for the year, is to get my novel done and then get it ready for the world.
Yeah.
What about
That's
that?
exciting.
Thank you. We're going back to LA
Yep.
soon.
In a couple of weeks, we'll be back in LA.
Yep.
Should be nice because it's cold here in Minnesota.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, but we're just lining up speaking engagements and stuff for the year, and thinking about our own personal travel that we want to do, and taking it day by day.
Any plans to be back in Florida?
Maybe for the QRSMA conference. We're not sure if we can go to that yet, but that's in June, and it's at Disney World, which is always a fun one to go to.
Yeah,
so
true,
hopefully then, but otherwise we'll see.
Yeah, our best friends live in Tampa, so we're always looking for any excuse to get down there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Well, we'll definitely be following your journey along the way. That's
Absolutely.
awesome. Yeah.
Well, speaking of books, before we wrap up, we do a second segment called our Deep Cut, where we talk about media in disabled spaces. So we always ask our guests if there's a book, TV or film, or even music that has resonated with you lately that you'd like to maybe share with our listeners.
That's a great question.
Yeah.
I should have thought about it. We're both really bad at picking favorites like this.
We can tell us more about your book.
Does it involve disability? Is that?
No, it could be anything that
Doesn't
you
have to.
it resonates with you and you'd like to tell the world about.
What have we watched recently? We've watched some things. I mean, this is ridiculous, but I watched Freakier Friday and I loved it. Like I love that movie. Which I don't really know why. I wasn't even a huge Freaky Friday fan. Like I liked it. But I really thought that Freakier Friday was so cute. I saw it twice.
Hannah said to me, I think that Freakier Friday might be one of my favorite all-time movies.
Yeah, I don't know why. I just
Awesome.
It was so nice.
Let's see. I am reading a very long book by I can't remember his last name, but the book is okay. The book is called Tom's Crossing.
Okay.
And it's written by the author that wrote House of Leaves. And
Mark Danielewski.
Mark Danielewski, yeah.
Okay.
And it's one of the most immersive books that I've ever read. Like the world that he created, which is like a parallel to our own world type thing. And the writing is just beautiful. It's very funny and very real. And it's taken me months to read it because of how long it is. But I talk about it all the time. And Hannah's like, oh my God, shut up about this book.
We'll just finish the book.
Finish it already.
Yeah, that's what I recommend right now.
Nice.
Both
That's
of those are
awesome.
great recommendations.
Very cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. Well, it's been a real honor and privilege to have you guys on our show. Thank you so much for joining us. And as we said, we'll be continuing to follow you guys, and best of luck with everything coming up in this new year.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, great to be here. Thanks again.
Keep warm.
Yes, keep warm.
Stay with us. We're about to dive even deeper with this week's Deep Cut. Hi, for this week's Deep Cut, we're talking about the documentary I Didn't See You There, directed by Reid Davenport. What's striking is how Davenport films it. It's quiet, observant, and intentionally uncomfortable in a way that makes you think about who's looking, who's being looked at, and who gets to control the frame. This film opens with a circus tent going up outside the filmmaker's apartment. It's such a simple image, but it carries so much weight. What did that moment set up for you, Keith?
Yeah, it was really interesting and apparently very unplanned when he was filming this. So the idea of that was really interesting. The idea of the historical background of the circus being, the quote freak show. And a lot of people that were in those shows were really just people with, maybe rare disabilities, not even necessarily so rare disabilities, but just, again, were framed as, something for our entertainment, Yeah, it's, and I mean that, the circus today is different, but yet I can see it still being a symbol of, for a lot of people of what it meant and the just the historical challenges that a lot of people with disabilities have faced, just being accepted,
Yeah. Yeah, I started thinking about it. I didn't, of course, grow up during the heyday of the circus nor the freak shows,
Right.
but, I do remember going to the circus as a kid and, not understanding the history whatsoever. I was there for the elephants and, and so it makes me think about if I would have known then kind of the history, how it would have affected me. And, would I have noticed the stares and, the things that happened to me as a child? Would I have thought of it any differently? Having known that, that history and, would my parents have even felt different? I mean, I know my parents knew about it.
Oh yeah.
But I guess maybe in their minds too, society had changed, but, really hadn't, because, they're advertised, they weren't disabled. So, they weren't living through that lens either. So, but it kind of brought me back to my childhood and thinking about that and the difference, knowing and not knowing,
Yeah.
what that means.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. And just thinking of it through that lens. Yeah, it was almost like it was poetic in the sense that went up as he's filming, of all things, just kind of helped him. It probably helped him guide the direction of the film, honestly, in a way that maybe wasn't. I'd be interested to see if he ever talked about that, like what his intention was for the film versus what it became, because that circus tent suddenly popped up as he's filming,
Yeah. Even that comment, like, I can't go out and film anymore without it being in the background. It's like there.
Yeah.
It's just this ever-present
Like haunting
thing.
Yeah, like the
and,
past sort of there haunting him, the legacy of that sort of thing. Wow. Yeah.
Which gives that overarching, he can't go out without being viewed for his disability. That metaphor was there and, he was able to use it.
Yeah, for sure. Well, another thing that, was noticeable, pretty early on in the movie was one thing the film really refuses to do, which is that, Reid doesn't really explain himself. He doesn't introduce his body. He doesn't center his face. How did that refusal land for you?
It really let me see how in control he was, because he wasn't kind of saying, declaring, here I am, please understand me. This is, the body I live in. This is, my reality. He's kind of saying, I live here. This is me, but I'm watching you now, and you don't get access to me automatically. And that's powerful because so often disabled people are open for interpretation in the world, or have to explain ourselves. Like when there were scenes where he was on a plane and he's just trying to get off the plane, get to his, the place where the transportation is going to pick him up. And they're asking him all these questions. Where's your ID? Where's this? Where's that? Where's your boarding pass? Yeah. And they're not asking anyone else these questions.
Right.
And, they need it for their documentation or whatever. But it's like, even the simple task of getting off a plane and getting to transportation has all these extra barriers to it and explanations to it. Why do you need this? Why are you going here? Why are you doing that? And so I think by him having such control over what we got to see of him and how he saw the world, I love that. It was so unique. And so I thought it was great.
Yeah. And almost every other documentary that I've seen, the person with disability is on camera, and we see that, but again, we're seeing it from the same lens that we see the rest of the world, which is our own viewpoint. And this was now a way of seeing things from Reid's viewpoint, and what it's really like as he's in his power chair zipping down the sidewalk, and there's a curb cut and there's a couple standing there just talking, seemingly oblivious to the fact that he's like a foot away from them, and he has to say, like, if I remember correctly, I think he had to say like something like "excuse me" or something like that. Yeah. And then they and they seem to almost reluctantly move, which I'm just, maybe that maybe I'm reading too much into that. I'll be fair and say maybe that's just again, it didn't really. I don't want to say what these people were thinking, but it's kind of like, boy, I get why you named the film "I Didn't See You There," because that was wild to me that he was that close, and they're just kind of like oblivious to the fact that this individual needs to use that curb cut to continue moving forward. And I don't know, so that perspective was really really fabulous. I thought I was very happy to see that, and it did make the film very unique, as you said.
Yeah, that made me so angry because the flippant, I'm sorry, but I'm not going to speed up and I'm not going to correct myself. Just sorry and keep doing what I'm doing. I was just like, because that's happened so many times. I'm sorry I'm in your way, but I'm not going to do anything about it.
Right, which is just so, it's so degrading and depersonalizing.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So with the camera pointed outward, and at his, wheelchair height, moving through the streets and the crowds, for me, it was honestly a strange perspective because of my height, because I'm an ambulatory wheelchair user. It was my perspective of the world. Like some of the things that I saw, it's like, that's how I view it. This, to me, it wasn't a look at this unique way to view it. It was kind of like, oh, this is kind of where I am in the world. And it changed the trajectory of the film for me, because to me, it wasn't like a choice or a cinematic view. It was, a view of the world like I see it. So did that perspective, change the way that you experienced the film?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that choice that he made of filming it that way, I think it benefits everyone. I think it, and you can, it sounds like this is how you feel about it. But the idea that filming from that perspective for someone who lives their life at that perspective, it's emboldening, and it's it's reality. It's like, oh, this is finally, you can see what this is who I am, and this is me getting around. And for those individuals who don't use a mobile device for getting around, chair, scooter, whatever, it puts them in that position to see what that might be really like, in a way that they're not going to have experienced, as I was sort of saying before, like when, and seeing the barriers that he was, having to get through. So I feel like it's a bold choice, and I think it works for whether you view the world that way or not. So it's not like he disenfranchised one group to make another group have a better perspective. I think it works for everyone, and made the movie just so much more, again, unique compared to others that I've seen.
And I think it made some of the scenes, a little bit more intimate because you weren't, looking down at what was happening or, to the side. You were like in it. And I don't know. I just really appreciated it so much.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Well, we're so used to disabled people being asked to show themselves, explain themselves, to justify themselves. And as we've sort of stated, this film flips that dynamic. So instead of being looked at, Davenport looks back. Why does that matter?
Well, I think it flips the power dynamic. We've kind of touched on it before. Disabled people are used to being watched and measured and commented on. And this documentary kind of said, no, you're not observing me. I'm observing you. And, I think that can make people uncomfortable. Right at the end, there's something that kind of summed it up for me. He was filming and there was a man sitting on a ledge, a little, high wall or short wall, and kind of looked at him and looked at Reid and then looked away. And then Reid kind of moved and he looked back again and saw that Reid was still kind of facing him and he looked away. And then Reid moved to more. And he, so the fact that the guy just kept looking, like he just, was waiting for Reid to stop observing him so he could feel comfortable enough to observe Reid unencumbered. And I've had those experiences. A lot of times I just kind of brush it off because it'd be exhausting. But every once in a while I get a bee in my bonnet and I will just watch someone who's watching me and then watch them look at me 3, 4, 5 more times. And every time they look and they see me still staring, they're just like, startled. Like almost like, how dare I continue to look at them? Just let me look at you in peace. So I just think it totally flipped that power dynamic. And I love that. I love that.
Yeah, I'm sorry, that example of what you just said is just so wild to me. Like, the idea that like, it's almost like saying, hey, and again, I'm going to go back to the circus term. And of course I don't mean this seriously, but like, it's almost like they're saying to you, hey, don't look, I'm not the freak. You're the freak. Yeah. I should be looking at you. Yeah. Why are you looking at me? Which is complete BS. Yeah. I mean, like that's just, ridiculous. Absolutely. But that's what that mindset, that's what it seems like it would be to me. Like that's sort of what they're thinking, whether they're maybe, I don't know if they're using, maybe I'm not sure they're thinking the word freak or anything. I don't want to put that, again, I'm being dramatic, but the idea being that, you're the one that should be examined, not the person doing the examining is ridiculous. Ridiculous.
Yeah, it's almost like, just let me look, Yeah. What's your problem? Just let me look.
Yeah.
I'm curious. Yeah. You can be curious. Everyone's curious.
Okay,
everyone's curious.
Sure.
I like that shirt. I like what, everyone's curious. Yeah. You take a look and then you move on with your life.
Right.
You don't need the series of looks. And, when you're making someone uncomfortable by whatever you're doing, and the people that you could tell and just don't stop. That's when it kind of, And it's exhausting because it's not one person a day, when you're out in large groups. It's one person this, and then 20 feet later, another person, and then 50 feet later, another person. It gets tiring. But
yeah. Wow.
The film explicitly connects this modern circus to the history of the freak show. So it's not so much a metaphor, but like lineage. What does the film suggest about how much really has changed?
Yeah. I mean, it's an interesting juxtaposition of, past and present. Sure, the modern circus is different, but again, just in his daily interactions, and as we're talking about, like, the way he's observed and whatnot, that doesn't feel all that different than the way people used to look at, the people in the circus back in the day. So maybe, they're not all under one tent presented to you for an admission fee per se, but people are still sometimes have that perspective of, something's wrong or something that needs to be examined or, is a spectacle out there for, my pleasure to just sort of like, check you out. What's going on here, and that's just, so yeah, things have changed, but things have also stayed the same.
Yeah. I think it goes back to like what we were just saying about the, the stairs and stuff, but it bleeds into, comments that people feel they're able to say to your face or, online, jokes that are made in like shows and movies, and just the entitlement to your life and your access. We talked about the curb cut,
Right.
and the people just kind of like, well, yes, they're doing something, they're doing a task, but did they have to do it right there?
Right.
No.
Right. Right.
People who are blocking the ramp with different equipment or whatever, yes, they're doing a job, they're trying to get it done, they're trying to be as quick as possible, but did they have to block the ramp with their stuff? No.
Right. Right.
So, they're deciding what he has access to. And then when he tells them, you're blocking this, or I need, they get real like,
Right.
well, I only need 5 more minutes, or well, I only need 2 minutes to get into my apartment. So,
Right.
why is your access more important than mine? So
Yeah.
I think that kind of leads to that. Like we don't,
Yes.
like you said, pay admission to see this or
Sure.
to judge this,
Yeah.
but it's kind of just now in the everyday life.
Yeah. Yeah. It's still the same curiosity, the same to some people, I don't know, almost like entertainment or something, whether it's under a tent or not, it's still, some people still see it that way.
Kind of like with celebrities. You chose to be a celebrity, so you should get to be talked about. Well, you're disabled and you chose to be on public, so you deserve to be looked at and judged. It's that
Right.
same kind of mindset, in my opinion.
It's interesting. Yeah. It's an interesting way of looking at it. Well, something else I found unsettling, there's a lot of unsettling things in this one. But something else I found unsettling is that the film doesn't let the viewer feel safely distanced from that history where, we're discussing, which we've been discussing here. It suggests, that we're still participating in it. So we kind of talked about this, but, do you feel implicated as a viewer?
Yes. And it kind of brought back to me a little bit about like what we're doing here on the podcast, because, we have moved from audio podcast to video podcast. So in doing so, it's more than just a technical shift for me. It changes, I'm putting myself out there now for people to, they don't just hear my voice, they get to see my face, they get to see my mannerisms, they get to see how I physically react to what we're talking about. And now my body can become part of the conversation should they choose it to be. So it's kind of there. I'm putting this out for the public gaze. And I don't think the film necessarily gives you a clean answer to what people are entitled to. But I do feel like anytime a disabled person puts themselves out there, and I wish more people were able to, because I think the voices are so important. But the more we put ourselves out there, especially in the beginning, that judgment, that gaze is going to be more critical. And eventually it will, for lack of a better term, become normalized and it will ease. But I think even now it's still, again, you put yourself out there, you should be prepared to be judged.
Wow.
And gazed upon and looked at.
Wow. I mean, that's an incredible answer in response to that. Honestly, I'm not even sure what else to add. That was, it's a very interesting point. It's like, I don't know. It's almost like there's like an ethical question there of the observation, of the watching, critically looking at, these individuals and I don't know. Again, I think a lot of it's to do with the filming perspective and seeing it from that, from Reid's eyes. It hopefully makes the audience, think about their choices and how they might react if they encounter someone, themselves in public, maybe differently.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of restraint in this film, but there is some anger in it. It's not always loud. And it can be political and not very explanatory. So why do you think Reid chose to use that tone to let this anger come out every once in a while.
Yeah, I think it was interesting. There were some times that I was expecting that he was going to get a little more angry than he did. And then honestly, there's a point where he gets so angry just for one moment that because the tone was that softer tone, that moment of anger, I mean, it made me like sit up and almost feel like I don't want to say uncomfortable, but it just, everything changed. Everything just changed at that moment. Yeah. And I was just like, oh my God, like that's okay. I get it. Like, it's almost like showing how almost like he's holding it in and just sort of trying to just be okay. I'm trying to get through my day. I'm trying to choose my battles. I'm trying to decide what to react to and what not to react to. And then at a point, there's like the last straw. And again, his anger is private. You know,
yes.
And so I don't want to go into the scene too much in case people watch this later, but it's he's still not showing that anger really to that extreme in front of anyone, but you can feel just how much everything has been really getting to him. And everything just flipped at that point. And I was just kind of like, wow, what a moment. What a moment. Like, I was not expecting it. And I'm sure that was the point. It was interesting. So, that's something I got from it. Like just the saving it up and showing how it's like a slow burn.
Yeah. And once the dam breaks, it's there.
Yeah.
There was one scene that we had already talked about, so I'll bring that one back up about like the getting off the plane and asking for all this information. Yeah. It made me think at first, it kind of shocked me because he was getting a little brisk with them and, like, what do you want? Why is it, asking them questions. And at first in me, I was like, why is he getting, why is he acting like that? And I thought to myself, I would just comply to make things easier for everyone. I would just get all the stuff and I would just comply and I would apologize for holding things up. And I started thinking to myself, but why?
Yeah.
Why is he doing that? And the reason is because no one else is being asked those questions. And I had to kind of like think the scenario through.
Wow. Yeah.
Because it's instinctive to just comply and apologize. I apologize for asking people to get away from the curb cut. I'm sorry, but I need to get down this curb.
Right.
Why am I apologizing?
Right. Exactly.
It's just instinctive. And I think him showing just the fed upness of, I shouldn't have to apologize for being in this space, for living my life. And you shouldn't have to go out of your way to, ask me things and require things from me that you don't require from anyone else. And I think I know the exact scene you're talking about. And I think it's just all of those things accumulating because who knows how many times things like that happen throughout just, leaving his house, going to the grocery store and coming home.
Sure. How
many things he had to deal with, and then the last straw.
Yeah. Yeah, so. Absolutely. I mean, I keep thinking about how often disabled people are expected to just be grateful or inspiring or instructive. And, the film doesn't do any of that. Clearly it does not do any of that. So what do you feel like it gives us instead?
I think it shows you the cost of being disabled in the world right now. He kind of touches a little bit on about where he came from versus where he's living now. There wasn't a lot of transportation and accessibility things for him where he was. He has those things now where he's living, but there's a cost to it. It doesn't just like I went from point A to point B and point B is so much better. Point B is better for certain things, but it's worse for others. And I think it he's displaying the cost of what it is for a disabled person to just be, to just live.
Yeah.
And, for some, it's a huge cost. For some, it's not as much because everyone's lived experience is different. But I feel like there's always a cost. And he kind of shows that what it is for him.
That's interesting. Yeah. Right. It's like a world of trade-offs. It's like kind of no matter where you go. I mean, so where he lives now overall is better, but it's not like it's a utopia or anything. It's still like
Yeah.
got its issues and trade-offs. Yeah, that's really interesting perspective that I took to some degree, but until you said it, I didn't really fully think about like what those trade-off, like how it compares, and it's really interesting. It makes me kind of think about, I almost want to go back and rewatch some of the scenes that kind of illustrate that, because I think to some degree I didn't fully grasp that. So that's really interesting. Yeah. I feel like there's a lot of space for like sort of unresolved feeling in the film, where like again, like he's just living his life. He's not supposed to be inspiring, or he's not supposed to be like educating people about his disability or whatever. And it's just like I think it's left without telling you how you should feel or not feel, or feel how you want to feel. And it just leaves that up to you. It just leaves that up to the viewer, how they take it. It's not preachy. It's very subtle in a lot of ways. I mean, I'll be honest, the first 15, 20 minutes, I kind of felt it was a little slow. I was kind of like, okay, he's just, but it doesn't, it makes more sense then as you watch it further and things happen and things change, that you suddenly get that first, whatever, 15, 20 minutes and what that tone is about, and the contrast later. I have to admit, I didn't even really quite get it at first. I'm just like, okay, what's going on, boy, then it hits. Yeah.
And I think that's because, you live and work in this, disability space.
Sure.
So for you, it wasn't anything that you hadn't seen or heard before.
Fair, yeah.
And I agree that kind of, you're just like, this is it. This is the thing. And then it starts building up.
Yep.
But, it doesn't tell you what to think.
Nope.
I think it's asking you to notice how you look at people who are disabled and what you expect from them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it tries to make you uncomfortable. So ultimately, what do you think it's asking the audience to take away from it?
I mean, I think ultimately I think it questions how we view disability in general. Again, the whole perspective of how it's filmed is, it's different, it's unique, and it gives viewers a different way of looking at things. I've seen a lot of documentaries about disability, other, films, fiction, nonfiction, and this might be the only one that I've seen fully filmed in the perspective it's filmed in. And I think it's probably in a lot of respects the most powerful one that I've seen, just because of that perspective and making you think differently about, the whole thing's about visibility, right? I mean, it's called I Didn't See You There. And it's like he's invisible when he needs to be visible, and he's visible when he just wants to be invisible, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, he's invisible when he's trying to get down the sidewalk and hits a curb cut and someone's there and they don't seem to notice him. But then when he just wants to sit and wait for his public transportation to pick him up, he's being examined and looked at, and, and it's kind of like, everything's flipped. Like, can he just be who he is and not be either visible or invisible? Just be.
Yeah, if he's sitting alone by himself, it means something's wrong. We must help him, because he,
right.
Why else would he be alone and sitting? He must need something, and it's good Samaritans and everything. But then when he's like trying to get somewhere, let's just be in his way and not bother getting out of the way.
Right.
So
it doesn't make any sense. Right. Yeah.
I think it talks about, there's another scene that I won't go into too much detail, but it's at the very beginning, where it kind of shows how isolated disabled people can be and their experiences can be by, the systems that are set up. And it has to do with a subway and how, people get off a subway, they go up the stairs and they go out to the street and they live their lives. And the way that a disabled person, hoops they have to jump through, no pun intended, to kind of get out. And all these systems that, you have to go here and do that can be so isolating.
Yeah.
And I think he kind of also shows that for the fact that he is the cameraman, he is the narrator, he is the star. It's all alone. It's him. That's it. It's very isolating in the experience that he has. And I think it's kind of just like the message of how the systems and how people treat people with disabilities, how isolating it can be. And I think that's kind of what it's trying to show the audience, that that it can be a very lonely place, but it doesn't have to be.
Right.
It can be very isolating, but it doesn't have to be.
Well, and then I don't know if this is the same scene you're referring to or not, but to flip it the other way, there's a scene where he's getting on the train and they're helping him get in, and the way that they need to strap him in for whatever reason, he needs to turn around. And he's like, why?
Yeah.
And he said, you got to face the other way. And I mean, I don't know. Maybe the car is designed that way. I don't know. They don't really explain it or anything. But he complies and he turns around. But then that view from the camera, everyone is just staring, just watching. Yeah. And I felt so uncomfortable inside.
Yeah.
And it's like now I'm being put on display. You know, because for some reason you designed this thing that I have to face the other way. And just getting in, I'm thinking to myself, well, what if you have like a motion sickness issue or something? Some people can't be backwards, and they'll get sick. I don't know. I mean, not the issue here, but I'm just in my head, I'm like, why does anyone design things that way? But then when I just saw the perspective and talk about, again, the filming perspective, from his, as a first person viewpoint, I just was like, I thought to myself, I would hate this deeply. Yeah. Like just the rest of the train is just looking that way. Yeah. And I was just, I mean, literally my heart, like, I mean, I was truly, truly uncomfortable and like living the moment there for a moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a theme park in Florida, which will remain nameless.
Okay.
That I rode the bus system for the first time when I first started using a mobility device, and they have a similar thing, and it becomes an event. The getting on, the whole bus has to stop, the driver has to get out, there has to be this whole big thing, and there is a moment of facing backwards, and you're in this bus that's just packed to the gills with children and adults, and everyone is just watching the whole process, and you're like, the Lion King show. All of a sudden you're just kind of part of the event. Yeah. I wrote it once, and then I've never used that transportation again, because it becomes such a big deal. I just want to roll on, sit down, get to my destination, get off. I don't need the whole rigmarole. And it's,
wow.
But,
wow. Yeah. Interesting. Well, all right. So kind of to wrap up, who do you think this film is for? Because it doesn't feel like it's trying to persuade everyone.
This is just my take. It may be completely off, but I think it's for, disabled audiences first, and then for anyone who's willing to be challenged, because it's not really even asking for understanding or to be liked. It's just saying, this is my experience. This is how it is. What do you think?
Yeah.
And I think, disabled people just kind of get it, and they'll see moments of, their experience in what he's talking about. There'll be moments like I had where it's like, oh, I didn't think about that, or I am doing that so much differently than how he's doing that. And then the people who don't have those lived experiences but are willing to be open and challenge their thinking, I think it's for them. I think people who aren't willing to challenge themselves might actually be offended by some of it,
or at least not get it at all.
Yeah, just be like,
not sure what the point is.
I think they'll think he's mean.
Wow.
And his mom touches on that. I won't go into it, but his mom touches on that a little bit. He's having a conversation with her, and they discuss that a little bit. And I think most people would be like, he didn't have to react like that. They just won't understand. But hopefully hopefully through watching it, they might get a better insight.
I would hope so. Yeah, I would hope so. But yeah, it's really interesting. I do feel like everyone could potentially get something from it that's different from, as I mentioned earlier, from most other documentaries or films, regarding disability that I've seen before. I think the potential there is for something new for everyone. It's just, there are those people that won't be willing to let that in and see it. And probably if this film doesn't do it, nothing would, unfortunately.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Well, I Didn't See You There isn't an easy watch, but it's not meant to be. It's a film that asks us to confront the legacy of spectacle and to sit with the discomfort of being a witness rather than a consumer.
It reminds us that representation isn't just about being seen. It's about who controls the frame, who benefits from the gaze, and who gets to look back.
Thanks for spending this time with us in this deep cut. These are the stories that don't wrap themselves up neatly, and that's often where the truth lives.
That's right.
Yep.
See you next time.
That's a wrap on today's episode. We're grateful to Shane and Hannah for trusting us with their story and for modeling what it looks like to lead with honesty while still protecting themselves.
Yes, their work reminds us that visibility doesn't mean obligation and sharing doesn't mean surrendering control. We have links to Squirmy and Grubs and their work in the show notes.
If this conversation made you reflect on how you engage with creators, with partners, or within your own boundaries, sit with that. These stories matter because people matter.
Thanks for listening.
We'll see you next time on Disability Deep Dive.
Disability Deep Dive is a podcast that is brought to you by Disability Rights Florida, where real conversations about life, culture, and ideas meet the lived disability experience. Follow us on YouTube, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcasts. You can also find us at disabilityrightsflorida.org/podcast.